Hello! Welcome to the Astral Metapod podcast, the Radiant podcast that evolves around the evolving astral meta. This is one of your hosts, Jake. Got to his home about 5 hours ago from the state of Texas, went to bed, and woke up. It is now 8:12.
Yeah.
Him and his co-host, Sean, are recording the podcast. Thank you to Sean for allowing me to record after this pod. I travel 4 hours to go to my brother's college graduation. But Sean, if you do not see in the YouTube or Spotify video version of the podcast, the Metapod podcast, Sean is holding up 4 beautiful, gorgeous, absolutely stunning, thrilling, incredible cards. Sean, what do you have?
I mean, I've got the most busted cards from Astral Radiance in my hand. The viewers will know my joke. The listeners, however...
What do you mean, joke?
I'm sorry, not joke. The earnestness with which I say that. For the listeners, though, I am holding up 4 of the Astral Radiance Rowlet. Long time listeners.
For those of you that don't know, Rowlet is my favorite Pokemon, but also Sean got to open up a Astral Radiance booster box, which you may have seen on our Metapod YouTube channel. It is a video exclusive to YouTube, so if you want to see Sean open up an Astral Radiance booster box early, thank you to the Pokemon Company for sending him that stuff. Make sure to go check out our YouTube channel, and also, oops, the ETB's backwards. The ETB I've got. Thank you to the Pokemon Company for allowing Sean to send this to me and open it up for the channel. I will be opening this up on the channel later this week, so definitely, again, make sure Metapod Podcast, search it up on YouTube. You'll be able to find us. It's the only show that talks about the podcast. Anyways, this is going to be a crazy episode today. Not only because we're talking about the set list for Astral Radiance, now that people are opening up products, we've seen the ETB booklets and things like that. We're going. We're going, Sean. We are full send into this set, and I'm very excited about it. Are you excited?
Yeah, I'm very excited. I think there's a lot of cards in this set that are a lot of fun. It was a lot of fun to open the set. I think I said Brilliant Stars was a really fun set to open. Astral Radiance, I'm going to say, is even more fun to open because you have the Radiant Pokemon, the sparkling Pokemon, if you will.
Yes, I was listening. I wasn't watching, but I was listening when you were streaming it because I was running around on a golf course in 100-degree weather, sun beating down. I'm not sunburned, by the way, which is truly a Christmas miracle. But the set looks absolutely awesome. You know, you just talking about the different cards and the different hits that you got as well. It just... I said that Brilliant Stars was probably one of the most fun sets to open in recent memory within like the last couple of years, definitely like in the Sword and Shield era. And I think Astral Radiance is going to take the cake. I mean, I have to open up the CTV first, but I think Astral Radiance is going to take the cake. And Sean got 2, in my opinion, the best Radiant Pokemon.
Yeah, we got Greninja and Hawlucha. 2 awesome, and also today's going to be the set review, so we'll go over what all these cards do. But the reason I think this beats out Brilliant Stars, and it's a very narrow edge, but the set retains all of the character rares that you get in the reverse slot. So, you know, you get the normal amount of pulls in the main slot, and you get all the character rare cards in the character rare slot, and they've also added in between 1 and 3 Radiant Pokemon in that slot. So you're actually going to end up with, on average, 1 to 2 more hits than the average Brilliant Stars box, in my opinion. So it's like, for as awesome as Brilliant Stars was, this set, even more so.
Yeah, it's just, there's so many cool cards, and we're going to talk about them all. We're going to talk about all of the beautiful cards, but what we need to talk about first, Sean, is the incredible, mind-boggling, absolutely gigantic piece of news. You're giving me the eyebrow right now. You're like, wow, you're really hyping this up, dude. You're really committing to this.
What is that news, Jake?
It is the news that the Metapod podcast officially has over 100 ratings on Apple iTunes. Thank you so much to everyone who listens to this podcast. Let me tell you, I don't know if it's because we had Maxlow on instead of you, and I forgot to change the name plate to Maxlow because I just forgot. But yeah. We got a surge of reviews. Y'all really, this past week, really gave us the ratings and reviews, and super appreciative of that, whether you came on YouTube, whether you're here on Spotify, any of that stuff. But Sean, do you want to do the lovely listeners the greatest? I mean, I'll be reading it because I read it. Yeah, but do you want to introduce the lovely segment for the viewers?
Well, I mean, we're gonna read the 5-star review, listeners, and this 5-star review, one of the included in the many that we got over the last week, is from Say Swear. Jake, take it away.
Now, Say Swear titled this 5-star review, quality content about our favorite TCG. It is 5 whole stars, Sean. Not 4, not 3, not 2, not 1. It is 5. My partner and I recently decided to dive headfirst into the Pokemon trading card game as longtime fans of the Pokemon franchise. Sorry, I'm only running on like 3 hours of sleep. Tuesdays have become since one of my favorite days of the week, as I look forward to hearing any and all news about the Pokemon trading card game on my commute to work. Thank you to everything you all do for the community to keep the passion flowing. Cheers. Hey, cheers to you too. I'll bring my coffee cup, my Sobble coffee, and have a good old cheers to you. But Sean,
yeah,
this is the moment. This is the time, the moment that people have actually been asking us. I heard in your Twitch chat when you were streaming, you were like, when's the set review? When's the set review? Sean's like, well, just buckle up, cowboy.
This week. Yeah, like we usually like to wait for us on the set review until basically the pre-release, because that's when we know for sure what cards are in the set. And also, it makes it very easy because Pokebeach, who we're using for this, shout out to them, They just publish a nice, easy-to-read list of all the cards, separated by typing and then trainers. It's great. Super convenient for us creators like this.
Especially when, Sean and I both work. Our job is not Pokemon. Our hobby is Pokemon, and we talk about Pokemon probably way more than the average person. But, we're busy people. So having something like this ready to rock and roll is awesome. And Sean, Astral Radiance, if you do not know, is a set coming out here very soon. It is comprised of 246 cards, 189 regular cards, 27 secret rares. I feel like that's not the highest number we've ever had, but I feel like it's a pretty high number.
Yeah, I mean, it's a pretty high number. I would say that plus the 30 trainer gallery cards, like when you combine them, because the trainer gallery is kind of like a less secret rare, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I mean, obviously, technically, that's not how it is, but I think for most fans, they'll consider like the trainer gallery cards to be like secret rares.
Yeah. And in many ways, like I think the trainer gallery cards, they're not going to be as rare as the like full art counterparts. Like, I mean, I'll give an example, right? Like Shadow Rider Calyrex V, trainer gallery. Gorgeous card.
Beautiful card.
The full art version is always going to command probably a higher price, but I know a lot of people who like those trainer gallery cards might actually be preferable if you're putting it in a deck, if you're blinging a deck out, to the other version, because like some of them just look nicer. That's the best way I can put it. Like some of them just look really nice, and like why not? Like Piers is a good example. The Piers that I pulled, the full art from the original set. I'm actually going to see if I can pull it up, and then Jake, and then the viewers can see.
The full art in the regular set looks good. I mean, it is not a bad one. And then also the one that came from Shining Fates also looks good. That appears, but this one, it's like they've been increasing the craziness and the coolness of the. Oh, you've got them both to show off here on the stream.
So,
but yeah, just like. they just look so good, and you have so many different options, like so many different expressions as well, personalities to showcase, to like best fit you, you know? It's
So
very crazy.
So we'll get into the set. It's going to be a long episode, but it looks like there were some cards that were cut, some gym promos that were added. I don't know specifically all the cards that were cut, but we'll just go through what we get in the set. I think that's the main thing. I think the ones that were cut that I guess people were surprised about were the Jirachi, I suppose, and a couple of full art cards, which I'm sure may come in their own. We saw like the Lucario V-Star box. The full art, what is it, Palkia and Dialga may very well come in their own box in the future. Would not surprise me.
I bet people would be happy about that Palkia too, because Palkia, we're going to talk about it, but that's a good card.
Yes, indeed. But yeah, I think, Jake, and one other thing, pre-release is happening the weekend prior to when this episode goes out and onward, so you can already go get your hands on some of these cards.
Yeah, I can't because I'm way too busy. But if you do, show us some of the polls that you are getting over on Twitter at MetapodTCG if you want to show us and you want to brag about some of your polls. But Sean, I'm just gonna take it away.
Yes.
I've got a card, little cutie, that I really, really like.
Okay.
And no, it's not Rowlet that I want to talk about. I want to talk about the Hissuian Voltorb real quick. It's a 50 HP basic grass Pokemon, just a little cutie there. Its first attack is the one that I want to talk about. It is a non-energy attack. You do not have to have any energy on this to use and announce this attack. It's similar to the Rowlet and the Alolan Executor GX. Its first move, where you just don't have an energy cost on it. You can use this attack only if you go second and only on your first turn. Choose up to 2 of your benched Pokemon. For each of those Pokemon, search your deck for a basic energy card and attach it to that Pokemon. Then shuffle your deck. I think that this is a very cool little setup Pokemon. I kind of wish like more Pokemon had this effect, and like we saw this more often of just like getting energies into play. Now, it may not be super great in standard because there may be better accelerants. I think it's a good start, and I think there are some one prize decks that may really, really love this Pokemon. But also, if you're a fan of the growing Gym Leader Challenge format, I think that this is a really cool card to use.
Yeah, I actually would say I think it could be really good in standard, Jake, because
you do.
I do. The reason I think it could be good, because you could put this in as a one-of, right? If you're putting it in as a one-of, especially in, this is going to be a little controversial, Arceus decks, right? The reason I'm saying that is because if you're going second and you're playing a deck that plays Arceus, typically your starter, like the thing that you want to like end your turn with, is the Arceus Trinity Charge, right? You have to find a double colorless though. You have to attach it. You have to leave a 2-prizer in the active to probably take a hit, maybe even get knocked out, right? And all of that just to attach 3 energy. Now, this attaches 1 to 2 different Pokemon, so there is the drawback of you
don't have the freedom like Arceus.
Yes, you don't have the freedom, but you're also not giving up 2 prizes. You're not wasting a double turbo energy to do it, right? So if you have decks that have alternative energy acceleration, I'm thinking Magma Basin, I'm thinking Dark Patch, whatever it may be. If you don't need all 3 of those energy immediately, and you can find your way, and also if this gets knocked out, you have a target for Raihan now. Raihan becomes active. So I don't know. There is something about this that maybe it's a card that you could start seeing as a one-of in decks to be like, hey, if I happen to go second, I can prioritize, depending on my hand, grabbing my one-of Hissuian Voltorb. And it's a bit of a, if you get it, it's awesome. It's a bonus. And you have that option. And if you don't, it's still fine, right? It's a one-of. It's not a huge deal. That's, in my opinion, that's kind of how I'm viewing the card.
I think that's really cheeky, and I kind of like that thought. And while you were talking about, like Arceus, you could pair this with Arceus and do this, that, and the other. This is a really interesting choice where if you fail turn 1 attachment,
Yes.
right? So like a lot of Arceus decks right now, whether that is, water versions, dark versions, Beedrill versions, my lovely Beedrill versions. All of those do that same thing of having 3 energies, one of them usually being a basic and then a double turbo. And so again, like if you're facing a deck like Mew that is really aggressive, will probably hit you very, very hard, more than likely knock you out if you leave your Arceus in the active. Maybe even you did attach a double turbo onto it. You can either A, get that Arceus fully ready and maybe another one get started in case they do like a boss play. Or what you could do is if you do whiff the energy attachment, well, you're behind a turn. Well, this can guarantee you that energy attachment. So I think that's a really, really cool idea, Sean. Props to you. I bet you didn't know I was going to talk about this card.
I mean, when I was pulling it, honestly, I usually set aside the cards that are like, hey, these are my favorite cards in the set. And I pulled out all 3 Hissuian Voltorbs that I pulled to put in the binder because I'm like, I think that it is a legit card that people should consider. So
yeah, I mean, I don't think you have any more than 2 in a deck, and I
Yes.
think 2's kind of pushing it, but
I agree.
maybe like in a one prizer deck, maybe 2 is viable because you consistently want that to be your starter.
Yeah.
Maybe, but yeah, in kind of the tech thing that we're thinking of, no.
I am gonna skip over Beedrill V. I'm just gonna acknowledge that as a V Pokemon, it exists, and we're gonna move on because it is bad.
The better Beedrill is the single strike Beedrill that people have been playing.
Accurate.
That's the one you should think about. Also, Scyther has 2 different card arts, Sean. Fun fact.
Oh,
4 and 5.
interesting. Oh, weird.
Has 2 different card arts.
I don't know why they gave Scyther 2 different card arts.
They do this every so often. And I feel like a dingus because I can't think of any Pokemon off the top of my head. But I vividly remember a Pokemon in probably like the last year and a half, at least since we started this podcast, where it's had 2 cards in the same set.
Well, does Cleaver evolve from Scyther, right?
Yes.
So that, I think, may be why they printed it. They wanted to give people 2 options in Standard to play as the pre-evolution to Cleaver. That's probably their mechanic reasoning.
Interesting. But
Yeah.
Sean, what is the next card you want to talk about?
I mean, the grass Pokemon. I'll briefly mention this Kricketune. It's a stage 1. I don't think it will see a lot of play in Standard for a bit, but the HP of each of your grass Pokemon, excluding Kricketune, is increased by 40, and you can't apply more than 1 Overflowing Melody ability at a time. I only mention this because grass does have a history, at least in the last 3 years, of like being both heal heavy and very tanky. And so increasing your HP by 40, there could be a world at some point in the future where like this plus a couple of other damage modifier things, whether it's trainers or other Pokemon, it could be kind of annoying to get around. That's all I'll mention. Jake, any quick thoughts on that one?
90 HP grass Pokemon stage 1 reminder, because Kricketune, if you don't remember, evolves from Kricketot. It is the Dele Woo Pokemon for those of you that have played the Gen 4 games. But I think this ability is cool. I think it's very interesting. I don't know how much of it you'll see. The only thing that I can think of that it gets paired with immediately, at least, is the Serena V-Star, or I'm sorry, Lilligant V-Star, which we will talk about later. But I know Andrew Mahone in his stream made a deck, as he does, of Lilligant V-Star, and that's what I would think that it would go into.
Yeah. So, I mean, that's what I'm saying. It's kind of strange, but there may be a world with all the dark type that is getting support, and dark is weak to grass. It feels like we're kind of in this merry-go-round of whatever the new stuff is, finding the weakness to that. Like, So who knows? But I don't know if the 40 HP, it may not matter from a math perspective in the long run.
Yeah, I mean that's over one power tablet, I'll say.
It's true.
You know, because power tablet or choice belt or whatever is 30. So I mean it's one extra of those. But Sean, number 14, Shaman. I'm gonna go. I'm calling out these little baby cards, Sean. We're gonna go long pod today with this set review. Shaman, a 70 HP basic grass Pokemon. I'm only talking about it because its first attack, a colorless cost called Bright Gift. This attack can be used only on your first turn if you go second. So again, bringing up these like, this is a one-time deal, you got to use it now or never type of Pokemon. Search your deck for up to 3 cards and put them in your hand. Then shuffle your deck. I mean, that's pretty cool. We know how good searching for just anything is. I mean, look at Starbirth, right? Look at Shady Dealings in Teleon with all the trainers. Like, 3 cards is a lot, Sean.
Yeah. It's good. I mean, I thought, you know, the closest thing we have currently in Standard that nobody uses is Cramorant. And Cramorant's first attack lets you go get 2 cards out of your deck. But obviously it's a 2-prize Pokemon, which is exactly why nobody uses it. But yeah, like this is interesting. I think as long as very few hand disruption cards are played, like Marnie, and especially once Marnie rotates, and the only hand disruption we might have is Roxanne, which we'll talk about later. Yes, which is not an early game card, because this you can only use on the first turn going second. So yeah, like there might be decks, like setup decks, that really benefit from this. This might be the card that stage 2 decks really need, because you can go grab the rare candy, you can go grab that stage 2, you can go, you know, whatever. Being able to go grab, say, 2 rare candies and an Evo Incense, you know, depending on what you have in hand, that would be pretty baller.
Or even like a supporter like Research.
Yeah.
You know, you got a trash hand, or you know, you got a dead hand, like this little Shaman will get you out of it. Yeah. I mean, I like this card. I don't think it's going to blow anybody's mind. You know, I don't think it's going to be a staple in decks, but I think it's a really, really interesting idea.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, I don't know. My gut says this is a great, if you really want to play stage 2 decks, 1-prize or stage 2s, great card, because you can hopefully guarantee those rare candies on turn 2. And that's,
yeah, you can,
yeah.
And also like combo heavy decks, like maybe like Beedrills, if Beedrill becomes more of like a 1-prize Pokemon, that might be an interesting addition into a deck like that.
Yeah. The next thing that I want to talk about is the Lilligant line, the one that you mentioned earlier as like, in terms of the big grass, the heavy hitters in grass, this is the one. So I actually really love the pre-evolution to this. The Lilligant V, it has 2 attacks, but the only one that matters is 200 HP basic grass. The first attack, though, 0 color, 0 energy, right?
Another one of those free attacks.
Yes, and you can draw until you have 6 cards in hand. It basically, Jake, it's Gormandize, because it ends your turn. It's effectively Gormandize.
We saw this in previous sets. Talonflame V. Talonflame V had a little stint, I think, in Victini decks.
Yes.
It also had an attack that I believe was discard your hand and draw 6 or 7. I can't remember. But this one, Lilligant V, allows you to be a little bit more safer with your resources, a little bit safer with your hand. You know, maybe you're only looking for 1 or 2 cards, you know, well, probably just 1. And you have valuable resources that you don't want to discard in your hand, like a Lilligant V-Star.
Yeah.
Sean.
Yeah, and the Lilligant V-Star. Now, this one, it's only 260 HP, which is pretty scary.
It's on the low end.
Yeah, that's on the low end. And, like, so you are very in range of getting knocked out early game. I will also say with that, Pokemon does have a history of printing Pokemon, like single prizers that do 120 to 130 damage as like basic Pokemon that's their attack. The reason I mention that is if it's Fire Week, We now have Magma Basin in the format, and the ability to do just 130 damage to knock this out for 2 prizes is actually super easy. For whatever reason, 280 and 270 are slightly better numbers if you want to try to get around weakness, because that requires them to have 140 damage, which is, like, if you think about it, a less common number for basic Pokemon.
Sean is pulling out the calculator. Sean
I'm
has
just
his
saying.
math book. I mean, he's on it right now.
I'm just saying, it's a little scary. But the first attack, parallel spin, 2 grass and a colorless, does 130 plus, and you can get 100 more damage if you return an energy card attached to this Pokemon to your hand. So 3 energy. There's a lot of ways to get 3 energy on. We do have Cherrim in the format, which allows you to attach grass from your hand to, is it your bench? Or
I think it's any Pokemon.
any Pokemon, yeah. Or
yeah.
It may be any grass. There's some weird qualifier.
Yeah. I think it might actually be that.
But yeah, like, so you can turn 2, which is what you have to wait for anyways. Yeah, you could probably Evo a Cherrim, get a bunch of grass energy onto this thing, and, off to the races. And 230 ain't bad. And then,
no, I mean, that's pretty good base. I mean, that's pretty good base stuff.
And then
it's also cool about, sorry, I'm cutting you off.
Go for it.
It's also really cool about this attack because, energies, you can only have so many in a deck before your deck becomes slow, clunky, bricky, things like that. This can basically or I guess I should say almost guarantee, without the hand disruption that could put it out of your hand, but you can pretty much guarantee an attachment every single turn. Stringing off attacks like this and stuff, being able to power up your Hissuian Lilligant V-Star, because you are always putting an energy back in your hand, and then you can attach it either to that one if it survives or a benched one or something like that. But Sean, the Star Perfume V-Star power is what we want to talk about. So what is that?
I mean, you basically can look for, up to 5 in any combination of grass Pokemon and grass energy. Put them into your hand and shuffle your deck. So, like we were saying about Cherrim, I don't know if that's the main combo that everyone else sees. That's what I see, though, is like, you could basically, as long as you get, I think, it's Cherrim on Evolution, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. As long as you have the basic on the field, if you can
Cherubi.
evolve... Yeah, the Cherubi. If you can evolve this, then you can go use the V-Star to get the Cherrim, get yourself 3 or 4 energy, or maybe another Lilligant, right? So you get 3 energy, the Cherrim, a Lilligant, you Evo the Cherrim, attach all the energy you need for the turn onto that V-Star, throw another Lilligant down, you're good to go, you're golden. So it's like, it's a self-powering engine, kind of. Like, it's like, oh, all you need to do is have a decent turn 1. Like, you need to get...
It's basically like Starbirth, but much more limiting. Because you can only do grass Pokemon and energy. But it has that similar vibe to like Starbirth, where Starbirth, you're grabbing specific things that you want. And so with this as well, you're doing that same exact thing, having the flexibility of not only energies, but also Pokemon on top of that. I really like this V-Star. I think this is a really cool V-Star with a really cool new Pokemon variant. And I'm excited for it, Sean.
Yeah. I mean, I think don't discount 230 damage, because, you're looking at most, if you're going first the whole game, and so it's your second turn, 230 is going to knock out basically every basic Pokemon out there, which is great. Every 2 prizer. And yeah, like with Darkness being a popular type coming out of this set, if you want some early meta wins, I actually think like this might be a cheap pickup relative to the Palkias and relative to the Darkrai or
exactly.
Whatever. So this is probably a pretty good budget option if you're looking for that.
It's going to be like your Whimsicott.
Yeah.
It's going to do well in some events. It's not going to be an overwhelming favorite or super popular choice to play, but it's going to be viable. It's going to be probably fun. And you're going to see some stuff with it. Sean, 1 card down. Rowlet, 60 HP, grass basic Pokemon. Absolute cutie. Absolutely love this art. He's just having a great old time. But we'll move on to other cards. I know, you know, we're going to take a long time on this set, but we have a lot to talk about. I kind of want to go to Heatran V, number 25.
You got it.
In the set, Sean. So we'll talk about the V first, and then we'll talk about the VMAX. The V, Mitsuhiro Arita, absolutely stunning card, in my opinion. Actually looks like you're in a volcano and gives you that vibe. So if it's not competitively your cup of tea, I guess definitely have this one in your collection, because man, this art is gorgeous on this Heatran. And Heatran is not a pretty looking Pokemon,
No.
I will say. So Heatran V is a fire basic Pokemon, 220 HP. It's got 2 attacks. The first one, Hot Burn for fire and colorless. Opponent's active Pokemon is now burn 30 damage. Okay. I wish it was like 50 because it, you know, it's 2 energies, but anyways. Fire, colorless, lava fall, 90 plus damage. If you have a stadium card in play, this attack does 90 more damage. So effectively 180 for the stadium. Now, it's not like Flygon GX or Pokemon like that, where you, if you have a stadium in play, you do more damage, but then you discard the stadium. This stadium stays in the field of play, and it just sits there. And this works interestingly because the VMAX, Sean, if you go to the VMAX, Heatran VMAX number 26 in the set, 330 HP fire VMAX Pokemon, 330, big number, kind of on the bigger end of the VMAXs, has the ability Lava Enchantment. Once during your turn, if you have a stadium card in play, you may heal 50 damage from this Pokemon. Stadiums are almost always in play right now. People are playing stadiums all the time. You're likely playing magma basins in this deck to fill the attack costs that we'll talk about here shortly. But think about this. You have the special fire energy, right, which adds 20 HP to your Pokemon. You have a 330 HP unit, absolute unit. You have Big Charm for a little bit, you know, for the next couple months, that gives you a boost of 30 HP, and you can heal 50. And you have things also like hyper potions in this set that we've seen with decks like Gengar, Malamar, VMAX, things like that. These different VMAX decks healing the 120. This dude thick, Sean. I don't know what Heatran is, but it's thick.
Yeah, I mean, I wonder, maybe it's enough, right? I'm thinking my friend plays Gardevoir VMAX, and that 50 damage, like, if a lot of the cards in the set are doing around 180, right? Like Malamar VMAX is 180. This card does 180. What is it? Arceus V-Star, if you have a double turbo, does 180. Now, you have Choice Belt as well, so like you can fix some math, but 180, if you're healing 50, all of a sudden that's 130, which means if they do 180 again, they still don't knock you out. So, like, it is a slightly awkward amount of healing. Yeah, it's weird. I don't know. Like, it's a bit strange, I think. I'm not sure about it, but you're right. The fire energy, the special fire energy, that's another one that I totally forgot about. That, yeah, you're adding 20 HP, too. So, over time, you could absolutely, like, this thing is could feel unkillable.
Yeah, I mean, if you can figure out some sort of way or some sort of function to heal just a ton, like, this is it. I mean, this is a really, really cool option, especially for fire decks, which we haven't really seen. And with the rise of Lilligant, who knows? I mean, its attack, we haven't even talked about its attack yet. Fire, colorless, max heat, 180. Your opponent's active Pokemon is now burned. Kind of like vanilla, you know, not necessarily astounding, but not necessarily terrible either, because again, you can two-shot, you can burn to maybe try to fix a little bit of math, you know, especially on some of the little V's, and But I don't know. I just think this card is real cool. I think that this has got something.
Yeah. I mean, I think who knows if the burn math makes any difference? Maybe. It could be that if you're hitting like that well, the Lilligant's going to be dead anyways. But like,
Yeah.
it's yeah. I mean, there are some Pokemon V now though that are like 200 HP, right? And burn, for those of you who are newer to the game and haven't actually experienced these special conditions, burn does 20 damage between turns. Now you have to
as long as the Pokemon is in the active. Once it goes to the bench, the burn goes away.
Yes, and now you do roll a die every turn to see if you stay burned. So you may not stay burned, but that first turn you're gonna take. I believe you're gonna take the burn damage no matter what. And
it's basically 200 damage.
Yeah, it's effectively 200 that has like a knock-on effect turn after turn. And that is status conditions are interesting things where people discount how that can really make the prize trade bad, because if you time it right with the right HP, then you can actually put your opponent into a position where between turns their thing gets knocked out. They have to send something up going into your turn. And if you can take another set of prizes, it's basically you're getting 4 prizes in a turn, kind of. It's very sneaky.
And also remember, we have different things to help fix math a little bit better. You know, the choice belt, that is an option. Maybe you're not going with the big charm like I mentioned. Quick shooting Inteleon, you know, shady deal. I have no doubt in my mind that this is going to be in a shady dealing stack. Sean.
No, I mean, it might very well.
Because you have to get cards like Magma Basin. You're probably going to try to get the what's the thing? The tool card. That's what I'm thinking of. And well, no. You'll
Big Charm,
like
Big
the
Charm.
tool attachment, whether it's Big Charm, Choice Bell, you know, different things like that. And so I have no doubt in my mind this is going to be in a shady dealings deck. But quick shooting Inteleon, Galarian Zigzagoon, you have these little different things to help affect the math a little bit to do effectively more damage in quotation marks. And I hope somebody breaks. I hope somebody does really well with Heatran, because it makes me look really smart.
That's fair. Okay, one last fire Pokemon. We have Radiant Heatran. So Heatran getting a lot of love in this set.
Oh yeah.
This is, I would say, the least of all the 3 sparkling, but it's still interesting. It is, and reminder, you can only have 1 sparkling Pokemon, not of that type, just in general in your deck. So
yes,
you know, pick one, and
it's
that's
like
the only
an
one you
ace
get.
spec.
Yes,
for anyone who's been playing for a while.
And this one is Fire Colorless, which is important, that distinction. This attack does 70 times the number of damage counters on this Pokemon. So, you know, how do you get damage counters on it? There's a number of ways. We have Gapejaw Bog. Whenever you put a basic onto the bench, it takes 2 damage counters. So right there, play it onto your bench. That's going to be doing 140 damage. Attach a fire. No, actually, Magma Basin of Fire. Attach a Twin Energy. Boom. That's 140 damage.
Wait, did you just say 2 stadiums?
No, Magma Basin and then a Twin Energy.
No. What about the first one?
Oh, yeah, I guess you could, if the Gapejaw Bog is on the field. We haven't gotten to that card yet. But it's like it puts 2 damage counters on a basic Pokemon when it comes onto the field.
I'm just saying you'll probably have to choose that or Magma Basin, because if you do not know the Pokemon trading card game, you can only play 1 stadium per turn.
Let's just say the Gapejaw Bog is already on the field, and then you switch it out for the Magma. I don't know, or a Raihan, whatever. You get my point.
There are different ways to be able to get that function going, and it's interesting. 70 damage times the number of damage counters. I mean, effectively, you're probably only going to get 2 damage counters, because, I mean, it's 160 HP. It's not very big.
I mean, a Cape of Toughness, and all of a sudden it's 210. That's a beefy boy.
You got to find that Cape of Toughness, though.
That's true. You're right.
If only we had Adventure Bag in the format.
I mean,
some of these decks would be nuts.
Yeah, but, I mean, we do have the Shady Dealings engine. Regardless, like, it's an interesting card. I think this is a really good closer if you've built the right deck for it. Because if you can make it kind of beefy in a format where it can't get insta knocked out, then your opponent might actually look at this card and go, crap, I can't hit into this, because the second I hit into it and don't kill it, I'm going to lose. Like, as a late game closer, it's like they will have an instant KO on anything if you don't kill it immediately. It's actually kind of a nice little, like, you put it in the active, and if your opponent can't get around it, GG's.
Yeah, I mean, just don't attack, forehead. I mean,
Yeah.
this is you almost learned that in the tournament you
Yeah.
did. You almost knocked out a Pokemon you wanted to not KO.
This is true. Jake, I will let you move us on to some water Pokemon, though. What is the first one?
We're gonna go to number 30, Starmie V. This is a 190 HP basic water Pokemon. Starmie being basic Pokemon. Just to let you all know, its first attack, 2 colorless, swift, 50 damage. This attack's damage is infected by weakness, resistance, or any other effects. So it's just 50 damage on your opponent's effects. If you do have a double turbo, I believe
30.
Yeah, it goes down to 30 because that is an effect from you and not your opponent. But anyways, double water is the next attack. 2 water energies. Energy spiral, 50 damage. This attack does 50 damage times the number of energy attached to your opponent's Pokemon in play. As of right now, most decks are playing, a full field. Mew slaps down everything it can. Shady Dealings Pokemon, whether that's Arceus or Urshifu or whatever, put down a lot of Pokemon in play. Maybe not a full bench on turn 1, but very, very close to usually. You're gonna hit consistently probably 150 to 300 damage, and 150 I'm that's stretching it. I think more often you're gonna hit like 200, Sean.
Yeah, I mean, I will say, with all the Arceus out there, and the fact that Arceus's V-Star's main attack attaches up to 3 energy to the field, well, you need 3 energy to do that attack. So post that attack, this attack will do, assuming they attached all 300 damage. Like,
it's gonna be it's very interesting.
Yeah, I mean, you could imagine there's a world in which if your opponent does the Arceus V-Star attack on their second turn, and they feel really safe and comfortable, whatever they knocked out, doesn't matter, and then you just slap this bad boy down, attach Melanie, 300 damage, like, that is not an unimaginable thing to have happen. And I think that's something that water has lacked for a very long time, is the ability to just out of nowhere take a big KO. Now, it is reliant on your opponent's board state. So, like, if the meta changes and if people are playing effectively Dragapult, like if Dragapult all of a sudden became the main card,
Dragapult, Victini,
right,
the number 1 decks.
Right. They're like, they only have 2 or 3 energy on the field. This card is trash. But assuming Arceus V-Star is a big thing, it's actually a really good card, maybe. I don't know.
I think that definitely, because we've seen a little bit of the fall off on Ice Rider Calyrex VMAX. I think that this is a perfect inclusion in a deck like that. You have Shady Dealings to find your Melanies really, really easy. Your Capacious Buckets, Training Courts, whatever, stadium you use. And so using this Pokemon is going to be great as well. Maybe you don't want to give up the 3 prize Ice Rider Calyrex VMAX right away. And so instead you feed a 2 prizer that maybe mid to late game can do a lot of damage and take a big 1-hit KO right away. Slap the Choice Belt on that. We keep saying Choice Belt, but man, it's such a good card for your math and so easy to find with Shady Dealings. You attach a Choice Belt on that puppy, and it's so good. And it's very, very interesting. And I think it's also a free retreater, which is a big thing to note as well. Starmie V having a retreat cost of 0. And we know that free retreat Pokemon are good in the Pokemon trading card game. The little cast form people were using, the debate of what the best cast form is.
I mean, yeah, I will say one deck that I think this goes well, and I just thought of it, is Suicune. This is perfect.
I think this is great for Suicune.
Yeah, like Suicune, you either need the ability to Evo up into the Ludicolo to get that 100 extra damage to take a big knockout, or this thing can just take the big knockout for you. And it's, like you said, a free retreat. I didn't even consider that. You're already playing Cape of Toughness in Suicune, so this thing is 240 with a cape. Like, actually, this is pretty broken in a Suicune deck.
I feel like maybe Choice Belt is the better option than Cape of Toughness, or just in my opinion, because I mean, Starmie is a 190 HP Pokemon, so it is on the low end of Vs, and so you're probably, I mean, Cape of Toughness makes you said 240. That's not out of the realm of possibilities for a lot of decks. You know, there are several decks that can hit that number, so I think maybe you're better off fixing your math with like a Choice Belt. But the Cape of Toughness could be an option because that's what Suicune's been playing. So if you're playing, you know, like a Rapid Strike Urshifu deck, you know, boom.
Yeah. Let's see here. If I pass one, let me know, but none of these interest me. I was like,
the Mantine is a beautiful art.
It is.
Okacheki, absolutely gorgeous. Just beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. I like looking at the arts as much as I like talking about the competitive cards. But Sean, I think we can talk about the good old one of the box legendaries. Yeah, I think we can start talking about that.
Yeah. So we have Origin Form Palkia V, which they've added an E to the form, which is very strange. And I can confirm that because the Dialga also has form with an E. Kind of odd. The regular one, I don't know. I think the basic, it's big. It's 220. So I will give it that. It's a beefy basic, which is important. Otherwise, most of the stuff doesn't really matter. But the V-Star at 280, which is also beefy for the V-Star, Water, Spatial Swell, 60 plus. It does 20 more damage for each benched Pokemon, yours and your opponent. So very much a Suicune effect there. And if you and your opponent both have a full bench, it's going to be doing 260 damage for 2 energy, Jake. And like you said, Choice Belt, that's 290. That's a lot of damage.
It's pretty wild, and this is a card and deck archetype that has been absolutely killing it in Japan. There are so many people posting lists about it, playing this archetype that, I mean, if you look at most people's videos, this is probably the top deck to come from Astral Radiance. For competitive players, this is going to be the card that you try to get.
Mm-hmm. I would say this, or is Darkrai's in the set, right? Am I going crazy?
I believe so.
Yeah.
I believe Darkrai's in the set. I saw someone pull a Darkrai.
Yeah. I think this and Darkrai would be the two, is my guess.
Mm-hmm.
And then, Jake, what does that V-Star, what that V-Star power do?
That V-Star power, reminder, you can only use one V-Star power per game, whether that is an attack or an ability. Only one per game, like your GX attack. Once during your turn, you may use this ability. Attach up to 3 water energy from your discard pile to your water Pokemon in any way you'd like. So pretty cool. The energy accelerate, you know, you may not always be able to hit Melanies. So this is a way to, you know, get around that inability to hit Melanies, whether, you know, you prize some, or maybe you had to discard some early, or, you know, you've already used them all. It's been a long game. This Palkia can help you get that going on your other water Pokemon. And it's also an ability, so it doesn't end your turn. It's not an attack. So you can use this, accelerate the energies onto your Palkia V-Star to be able to hit the big numbers that Sean was talking about earlier.
Yeah, and I think what makes this one really nice is Arceus V-Star, I feel like people typically use that ability as early as possible to like really finalize their board state, whatever. Typically, that's when you use it. And like a lot of the other V-Star abilities and powers and attacks, like you're using it earlier in the game usually. But this one, I like it because since it's only a 2 energy attack, you bench a couple of Palkia Vs early. You attach 1 water energy. Turn 2, you attach another water energy, you attack. Turn 3, that I think it's like a turn 3 onwards ability, because once your first V-Star gets knocked out, then you have a few water energy in the discard. You get the other V-Star out, you use its ability to basically set up your energy needs for the rest of the game. And like that, I think that's probably another reason why it's so powerful, is like getting set up doesn't take any amount of huge effort. You could maybe even play this deck without Melanie if you were so inclined. Like, I think
That's gutsy, but
it is.
you could.
I mean, but I think that actually is not an insane thing because of the V-Star power, right? If you can find, if you're playing like a 4/4 line of this, so you're going to have a much easier time finding the V-Stars. And the ability itself kind of says you don't need Melanie. If you just find with Capacious Buckets, if you just find an attachment every turn, it's very unlikely you need Melanie at all. So like,
and remember, we have things like Air Balloon and Escape Rope and switching the format. So you can slap down that Starmie V, use the ability to put 2 energies onto it, or, you know, 1 energy, and then you attach an energy, and then you have the ability to retreat this Palkia or whatever the pivot Pokemon is. And you can even use this V-Star power if you're on the bench, you know, if you're Starmie or whatever's in the active. So there's a lot that you could be able to do with this card. There's a lot of different ideas that can be explored, and I'm very excited to see what people do.
Agreed. Going down, we'll talk about the Radiant Greninja now. This one, it has the ability Concealed Card. Once during your turn, you can discard an energy, draw 2 cards. Yeah, it's nice. It's like
this is so good.
Yeah, it's like a nice little basic Chinchino that you got going on. Now, it does need to be an energy specifically, but you do have Capacious Bucket to find the energies. It's attack, water, colorless, discard 2 energy, do 90 to 2 of your opponent's Pokemon. Don't discount that. If you're playing against an Inteleon engine, keep in mind that Drizzile, I believe, has 90 or less HP.
It has 90.
Yeah, it has 90 exactly. So if your opponent's got a couple of little Drizziles, and you can take 2 prizes off of your single prizer, that's pretty busted.
It's also really, really cool because you have cards effectively like Training Court that allow you to get the energy back, you know, use Concealed Card again, get the energy back, use Concealed Card again, because a couple different decks play Training Court, so you may not even have to put it out. But also, to get that water colorless cost, you know, you are putting energies in the discard. We just talked about a Pokemon that accelerates energies from the discard onto your Pokemon. So again, you know, kind of talking about that idea of like sniping the Sobbles, Drizziles, things like that, the little baby Pokemon. This excellent option. This is, I think, what people consider to be the #1 Radiant Pokemon from the set, and a lot of people are really excited about this card, and I am too. It's a beautiful looking card. It's a good card. It's got some good attacks and ability on it to make it effective in a lot of different situations, and I think it's pretty cool.
Yeah, fully agree. I think it's a great versatile card when, if you've got a main beat stick Pokemon, this is both consistency and bench snipe to help you maybe get around like a 330 HP Heatran or whatever. If you're like, well, I've taken 4 prizes, I can't get through this absolute unit in front of me. Let me just snipe a couple of bench dudes and call it a day. So
now, Sean, I want to talk about number 51.
Okay.
I want to talk about this Regieleki real quick. This 130 HP basic electric Pokemon. Now, first I want to say it's one of the fastest Pokemon in the video game, one of the fastest speed stats, and it has a retreat cost of 3.
Why?
That's kind of a crime. That is the same retreat cost as Heatran V.
That is a flavor fail right there.
I mean, come on, Pokemon. But anyways, what I really want to talk about this card, I want to talk about its first attack. Colorless cost called Electromagnetic Sonar. Put an item card from your discard pile into your hand. Sean, basic Pokemon, like we mentioned. Think about the different Pokemon, basic Pokemon in the past that have this same effect, putting item cards from your discard pile into your hand. Can you think of one specific one that was really, really good in, what was it, like Black and White era, early X and Y?
Was there a Sableye that did this?
there was a Sableye Junk Hunt.
Yeah.
So good. And I mean, it was good in expanded, it's good in standard. It's just a great card. Now, in expanded at least, and even in its time in standard, there were plenty of other items that really helped make it like really, really good. But putting the item card back from your discard pile into your hand on a basic Pokemon. So this Regieleki could be really, really cool in terms of your control decks, your stall archetypes, you know, deck out options if there are other cards, whether that's in this set or in the future, that allow it to give it that viability. And I mean, if only there was something like Greninja in the set to allow you to just make these single prize Pokemon worth no prizes. Man, I miss that Greninja a lot, Sean.
Yeah, I think you're right. That's I think the key challenge with this is there's not a good way to stop your opponent taking all the prizes. So like this is a great ability, but yeah, if it was two item cards, then you could maybe try to recycle your crushing hammers. And between that and like
recycling crushing hammers, whoa.
I mean, but like, you know, recycle energy disruption, right? Because that's basically what you need to do. But one at a time just feels like just not enough currently. But I see where you're going with this. I see where you're going.
I think this is cool, but Sean, I think that Hissuian Typhlosion is a little bit cooler.
Yeah. Do you want to talk about the V and the V star? I'm assuming, right?
Yes. So Hissuian Typhlosion V. First off, the V is a gorgeous card. It is a beautiful artwork. Shin Nagasawa, absolute incredible artist, did a fantastic job on this card. The first attack, a non-energy cost. Again, going back to that non-energy cost. Your opponent's active Pokemon is now burned.
Pretty good.
Yeah, I mean, seems kind of fair for no energy cost. Psychic, colorless, shivering flames, 120 damage. Choose a card from your opponent's hand without looking. Reveal the card, then have your opponent shuffle it into their deck. So we've seen kind of this, put a card back into the bottom with like Malamar VMAX and stuff,
but
and now it's on.
But you get to pick the Malamar VMAX. You get to pick what card goes to the bottom.
Well, that's the VMAX that you're doing. This is just a little V,
fair.
but. I think if you're using this attack, you probably got a problem, because that means you probably didn't find the VMAX.
That's true.
But anyways, Hissuian Typhlosion V-Star, a psychic 260 HP Pokemon. Again, V-Star evolves from Hissuian Typhlosion V. Has the first attack, Psychic, colorless, Hollow Flame, 180 damage. Put 3 damage counters on your opponent's bench Pokemon in any way you'd like. Could be interesting if you're fixing a little bit of math. I don't know what that may be. You know, Dragapult has the different thing of Dragapult has the thing of attacking and putting 5 damage counters everywhere, you know. But Sean, I know you're waiting for me to talk about this, but the V-Star power, 1 psychic energy called Shadow Roaster. If your opponent's active Pokemon has 4 damage counters on it, it's knocked out. So, especially with Zigzagoon, Quick Shooting Inteleon in the format, you can manipulate your opponent's Pokemon to have 4 damage counters on it. And there's not a ton of healing. I know we talked about earlier, hyper potions and things like that are in the game, but there's not too much healing outside of maybe 1 or 2 archetypes. So this is really, really cool. It is weak to dark, though, which is kind of scary. We'll talk about that later, but you can get a couple little combos off on this card, which is very, very cool.
Yeah, I mean, you think about that first attack putting 3 damage counters. You throw 3 somewhere, then you Zigzagoon for 1, get a free knockout. So it's like, I think that is like the most obvious route, if you will. But I think being weak to dark, you're absolutely right. A little sketch. Kind of scary. But I don't know. It's it'll be interesting to see how much play this sees. I think it has potential, but to your point, it may be that the meta right now with how many people are coming for Mew VMAX. So like darkness, you know, a lot of energy is going into that. A lot of support for Dark coming out. I feel like it may just be that this card has to sit on the shelf for a set or two until Psychic Pokemon, are hitting for weakness against something that's relevant again. Maybe, I don't know, but
exactly. I think that's a valid conclusion, Sean.
The next ones that I want to talk about very briefly is the Togepi, Togetic, and Togekiss.
I'm so
line.
happy you want to talk about this one. I think this is cool.
I think this is very cool. So, people love the Inteleon engine, Jake. But what if the Inteleon engine instead did healing?
It could be cheeky.
That is exactly what I told my friend who plays Gardevoir VMAX, which is already a healing deck. But you could also play this in the Heatran deck that we were just talking about. So what they do, the Togepi, when you play it onto the bench, you heal 10 damage from your active. Pretty basic, not that great. The Togetic, when you play this Pokemon from your hand to evolve one of your Pokemon, you heal 30 from the active. And the Togekiss, when you evolve it, you heal 90 from the active. So, all in all, a full line there is going to heal you 130 damage. But, as we know, Jake, anybody who's played against or with the Inteleon engine, after a couple of turns, you can get some scoop up nets and heal some crazy damage all in one turn. I don't know. This could be a fun engine to play around with if you're looking to do like that Heatran, Guardy VMAX, a wall stall, not really stall, but like a big guy that never dies. Like this could be the spiritual successor to Rowlet, Alolan Executor in some ways.
I agree. The only thing about this that I'm worried about, which pains me to say, it might be really tough to get this going and have your deck like also excel, because I'm thinking of like support Pokemon going on right now, like Shady Dealings and Teleon. If you're trying to find your evolution incense, you're trying to find, your level balls, you're trying to find your scoop up nets to be able to do these combos, you probably have Shady Dealings on the field, and it's gonna be tight to fit Shady Dealings, this Togekiss, and whatever your attacking Pokemon is. But if you can find maybe a Pokemon that doesn't have the like energy cost, right? Maybe it's a very efficient Pokemon in terms of its energy. You can attach once per turn, potentially Raihan as well, and you're all golden in that aspect. I mean, maybe Sean.
I mean,
this is cool.
I'm just saying, I think that there might be a world in which like the Radiant Greninja and this line finds its way into a deck, maybe the Bibarel as you want, and that's your whole setup. And you maybe don't play like a heavy line of this. Maybe you play like a 2-2-2, right? Instead of like a 4-4-2 or something like that.
Or even like a 2-2-1.
Yeah. You could play a light line of this, play the Bibarel as your setup, right? Or something else. Radiant Greninja, and it's going to be less consistent. I am 100%, because Shady Dealings enables itself, basically.
Shady Dealings is consistency.
Yes, it is, yes. But I don't know. This was a fun little set of combos that I think certainly will be overlooked by a lot of people early on. But don't be surprised if somebody cracks a deck that is just the most annoying deck to have to play against, because it's like every time you swing into them, they heal everything, and you're like, come on.
You know what I think of actually doing this? So, Sean, this is going to be a little bit going away from the set, but you played in the Shuffle Squad webcam event.
I did.
And so you actually played against Frank Persic, who we've talked about recently on the podcast because he got second at the European International Championships. And his deck, I believe, was like Arceus, Corviknight?
Yes.
But what I'm trying to say is that didn't really play like Shady Dealings, right?
No, not at all.
That deck kind of just did itself in that aspect. And so who knows? I mean, I believe that especially with Corviknight, you have your Bronzong as well, right? The Bronzong that moves energies. It's kind of like a Cheryl deck, I would say. Maybe you add like a 2-2-1 line of this Togekiss or a 1-1-1 line of the Togekiss to just get a little bit of extra healing, right? In case you can't Cheryl or something like that. I don't know. I mean, Could be interesting.
Yeah, it's definitely it's a fun little line to play around with. That's all I'll leave people with on that.
It is something that you should explore.
Jake,
Sean,
what is the next Pokemon that you want to talk about, if any?
I think you can definitely skip the Uxie, Mesprit, and Azelf combo because they're just
they're
they're just a combo.
A 3-card combo to get rid of weakness, trash.
I will say Weird Ears, the Psychic 140 HP Stage 1 Pokemon, evolves from Stantler. If you have not played the Legends Arceus game, it has an ability that once per turn you may draw a card, which, I mean, it's not terrible. It's not great. I think there's other lines that you should play in your deck in terms of support Pokemon, but I think especially in the Gym Leader Challenge format, going back to that, this might be an addition to add. You know, it's Psychic Draw. You usually don't get that much, draw power in terms of support Pokemon with some of these guys, but colorless, 40 plus damage. You have the same number of cards in your hand as your opponent. This attack does 80 more damage. It's a little bit harder than you think to pull off, in my personal opinion. So we're going to move on to the next card. Sean, what you got next?
I mean, I got the Machamp line. I'm only going to say this. The basic Machamp, not great. Whatever. 220. It's a beefy boy, but whatever. Machamp VMAX, I will only say that you could do 220 damage for 2 energy, which is pretty good. That's pretty good. But we've seen 260 for 2. No. Fighting, colorless, max charge, 240 damage on this beefy boy. And there are some supporters that I have to include in this conversation, which is Grant. Grant allows your fighting Pokemon to do 30 more damage. Choice Belt does 30 more damage. You got 300 damage right there just with 2 cards. If you really need, Hawlucha adds 30 more damage. That's 330. That's knocking out basically everything, right?
Literally almost anything in the format.
So this guy, it has the potential to be a one-shot machine. It does. But, I was only going to mention that because, I think it will be a not highly played deck for the most part. But worth considering, maybe. Just maybe.
Well, just worth thinking about at least. I will say the Sudowoodo right under it has the ability called Skedaddle. I mean, you don't really have to worry about this card really being good or anything like that, but I just think Skedaddle is an incredible name for a Pokemon ability. One of my favorites in this set. But moving on, Sean, let's go to that Radiant Hawlucha that you were talking about earlier. It is a fighting basic Pokemon, 90 HP, so searchable with Level Ball and things like that. The sparkling Pokemon rule, you can only have 1 sparkling Pokemon in your deck. We talked about that before with Greninja. Has the ability Big Match. If this Pokemon is on your bench, your Pokemon's attacks do 30 more damage to your opponent's active Pokemon VMAX. So that is any Pokemon. It doesn't have to be specifically fighting Pokemon or anything like that. But if your opponent's playing a Mew VMAX, if your opponent's playing a Machamp VMAX, I guess, Duraludon VMAX, you could do 30 more damage to it with this Hawlucha. Single Strike Urshifu is still a VMAX that is in the meta right now. I'm hyping up Heatran to all's end. I don't know.
Mew VMAX, obviously still a thing.
Yeah, Mew is obviously still a thing. So it's worth considering, and it's a very interesting option. Also, one of the best shiny Pokemon in terms of color scheme, in my opinion. Absolutely beautiful Pokemon. But just so you don't skip over my boy Sean, go to the little baby Hissuian Decidueye, the 160 HP fighting stage 2. This evolves from Dartrix and Rowlet, grass Pokemon. The first attack doesn't cost anything, Sean. Again, I'm just constantly talking about these non-energy attacks. It's got Cutting Talon, 30 times damage. This attack does 30 damage times the number of damage counters on your opponent's Pokemon. Very interesting, in my personal opinion, especially with big HP VMAXs, V-Stars, things like that. You can get a lot of damage counters on a Pokemon and just kind of chip shot them.
Yeah.
I guess you could say, and build up that damage. So then this would be a finisher. Unfortunately, this finisher, hypothetically, is a stage 2 Pokemon, which is harder than you think to get around. But I think it's cool. It's worth talking about.
Yeah.
Fighting colorless direct arrow. This attack does 80 damage to one of your opponent's Pokemon. Don't apply weakness or resistance to the bench. So it's got the setup and the finishing in the attack. Although the setup, though, costs 3 energies, so it takes a little bit to get going, especially as a stage 2. But Sean, we can move on to the V and V Star if you'd like.
Yeah, I mean the Hissuian V, Decidueye V. It has Mountain Hunt. Search your deck for 2 cards, put them in your hand. Like we were saying earlier with the Cramorant, it's like that. It's fine. It's a good setup if you're going second, right, on the first turn. Nice. Point blank shot. Does 100 damage and it's not affected. That's fine. But really, the Decidueye V Star, for fighting colorless, so you can use double turbo with this. 160 plus, discard up to 3 energy from your hand, 30 more for each, so you discard in this way. So it does up to 250, depending on the setup. And then the ability, the V-Star ability, during your turn, you may draw cards from your deck until you have 8 cards in hand. You know what I see with this, Jake? I see a V-Star ability that is worse than Arceus. It's draw, but like, you can't get what you need, right?
Not every card can be as good as Arceus, Sean.
But this is what I'm saying. It's an ability that's a lesser Arceus, and it's an attack that's a lesser Palkia.
Okay, look.
That's all it is, man.
If you're playing a Hissuian Decidueye deck, right, you're probably not playing an Arceus. You're probably not playing Palkia. So it's okay. It's fine. Like, it's not bad.
It's fine. That's the best way to describe this Pokemon. It's fine.
You know what? You're fine. We're moving on. I will say Hissuian Overquill has 2 different cards. Going back to the 2 shot. Before you open up Astral Radiance, did you know that this Pokemon existed?
Nope, I did not.
What was your first reaction to this Pokemon?
I was like, Overquill, that's an interesting name. And that was it. It was just like, oh, cool. And then I didn't think anything of it because honestly, like, I don't think people are going to play this.
I mean, no, the cards are bad, but
yeah.
If you have not seen Overquill
this
from the
especially.
Legends Arceus, yeah, if you haven't seen the Legends Arceus game, Quillfish, spoiler alert, does get an evolution in the new games, and I just think this Pokemon looks absolutely ridiculous. I kind of love it. So, Sean, scroll down a little bit further. Let's go to Hissuian Sneasler. Now, Sneasel getting a new evolution. Sneasler, Darkness 200 or 120 HP, Dark Pokemon Stage 1. The ability Carrying Climb. As long as this Pokemon is on your bench, your opponent's your active Pokemon's retreat cost is 2 colorless less. 2 colorless. That's not bad. Sean, when we talk about dark decks, we talk about Eternatus. Remember that deck? Remember how that deck absolutely fell off?
I mean, I'm going to point out a card that has existed in Standard, and that is the, what is it, Bear something? Or Ursa Ring or something like that. There's a big bear Pokemon.
Ursaluna?
Maybe, but I can't remember the name of it. There's a big bear Pokemon, though, that was in Standard, and it may still be, and it did the exact same thing as the ability. Nobody ever played it.
Well, guess what, Sean? Now's the time to shine for dark Pokemon, so this is it! Anyways, you probably want to talk about Sneasler V.
I mean, do we? Is it good? Let's see. Actually, this ain't bad. Okay, I'll talk about this. The Sneasler V, 190, dark, colorless, 80 times for each special condition on your affecting your opponent's active. Note that the most that can be affecting it is 3. You can have burn, poison, and then one of the asleep, confusion, paralysis. Like, you got to pick one. I'd say that on average, it's either asleep or confusion. That's the easiest to get. And this does remind me of the, what is it? Not Salazzle. Salazzle, that's it. Yeah. The Salazzle that was doing, I want to say 90 times. But obviously that's a stage 1. It's a 1 prizer. It just depends. It's a flavor. But given all of the V-Stars prevalence in the format, 80 times is basically 240, plus the poison 250, plus the burn 270, and you're basically looking at 1 damage counter as a modifier to get rid of every V-Star out there. So maybe, but you really have to build around this deck, this card, which is, I think, what makes it bad, is like trying to get all 3 status conditions. It's a lot of work.
And plus, dark colorless is a little bit easier, or I mean, it's harder to fulfill, I'm sorry, than Salazzle's colorless with twin and double turbo. I mean, we are getting dark patch in the format, which we'll talk about here soon, but it's still a little bit difficult. But Sean, if you want a dark Pokemon that some people are really, really excited about, it is this Mightyena. We've actually talked about it a little bit on the podcast in terms of how excited we are of this card. 110 HP, stage 1 Pokemon evolves from Poochyena. Has the ability Hustle Bark. If your opponent has any Pokemon VMAX in play, this Pokemon's attack costs colorless less. So 3 colorless energies less. Sean, this Pokemon's attack, Wild Tackle, 160 damage. This Pokemon does 50 damage to itself, whatever. It's going to get knocked out probably by whatever. Anyways, but Sean, it costs 3 colorless, making this a literal free attack if there's any VMAX Pokemon in play. So you talk about the Zoroark Wormadam boxes, maybe like Rapid Strike Malamar, potentially. Like, you can one-shot Mew. From just the base damage, and that is huge. People are really, really excited about this Mightyena card, including myself. I think, especially for one prize counter box decks, this is going to be a very, very interesting card.
Yeah, this is also interesting because you think about the combo that you need to pull off the Galarian Moltres counter to Mew, where like you need 2 energy in hand, throw it down, attach another, retreat, all that stuff.
You have to also make sure that your opponent has taken enough prize cards.
Exactly. That's so. I mean, this one requires you to get into a stage 1, so that is the challenge. But I don't know. Like, I think your point, right? Like, you don't need any energy for this in the right deck, against the right deck. So it's like, okay, cool. Like, I don't have to commit anything other than 1 turn and 2 spaces in my deck. 1 for the Poochyena, 1 for the Mightyena. So if you know you're playing against a Mew VMAX, and they go first, all you do is turn 1. I'll just throw that Poochyena down.
And especially with the Zoroark, you don't even have to commit Poochyenas. You can just go straight into the Mightyena.
Yes, this is true. Oh, I accidentally clicked the wrong thing. There we go. But really good counter to Mew. I think that's basically all the card is the counter to a counter to Mew.
Yeah, I mean, yes. But we love that. We love countering Mew.
We do. It needs. I don't know if it needs any more countering after this card. Darkrai V. You got the basic. Does 130 for 3 energy. Now asleep. It's bad. The basic Pokemon does nothing. It's trash.
Yeah, you just want the basic Pokemon to evolve into the V-Star.
Accurate.
Sean, what is this incredible Darkrai V-Star?
It is 270 HP, so normal. Colorless, which doesn't actually matter because you need dark energy in order to do the attack. So double turbo, just rule it out. It doesn't matter. But Dark Pulse 30 plus. This attack does 30 more damage for each darkness energy attached to all of your Pokemon. So, if it's like super early game or like you don't have a lot of stuff on the field, terrible attack, absolute trash. But in the late game, and because we are getting a dark patch reprint, and if you're playing this with Arceus, right, you could see a dark Arceus deck switching over to this as its companion. All of a sudden now, Arceus is going to accelerate some energy. You can attach for turn, you can dark patch, and this can really build up. So if you get like 6 energy on it, 7 energy, you're doing like 210, 240, that kind of stuff. Situationally, this could be really, really good. And then the ability, the V-Star power. During your turn, you research your item. You may search your discard pile for 2 item cards, put them into your hand. So if you are using this, you can go grab dark patches out of your discard, throw them into your hand. Maybe other stuff, but probably dark patches is what this card was designed to do. Overall, I would say, like, if Mew remains popular in the format, this card is really good. I think it could just be good in the long run, but it does require a lot of energy on the board. So
Now, I mean, think about, we've been in the format for a little bit. A lot of decks are two-shotting, and so especially with things like Dark Patch and with Star Abyss, the V-Star power, having the ability to effectively have 6 Dark Patches if you want. I mean, you can get these energies and you can, do 2 shots throughout the game. And, we have different damage modifiers, again, like we've talked about several times already on this podcast episode. But Darkrai V-Star, a very typical attack, Dark Pulse. This is a typical Darkrai attack. They've put this on, I think, a couple Darkrai cards now. This type of attack, just different cost, different damage amount. But still very, very cool. People are very, very excited about this card. I know our last guest host, Max Lowe, from FlowTcast, he's very excited about this. Yeah. Sean, do you want to go over the other Dark V-Star, or I'll go over it?
Yeah, go over it. Let me know what you think.
Hissuian Samurott V, basic darkness type Pokemon at 220 HP. First attack, Dark Zigzag Drop, excellent name. Discard up to 2 Pokemon tools attached to your opponent's Pokemon in play. Cool, but just play Tool Scrapper.
Yeah.
3 Dark Energies, Shadow Slash, 180 damage. Discard an energy from this Pokemon. Could power up a Dark Patch or something. I don't know. But you want to evolve into the V-Star, the 270 HP Dark V-Star, evolving from Hissuian Samurott V. Double Dark Merciless Blade, 110 damage. If your opponent's active Pokemon has any damage counters on it, this attack does 110 more damage. So effectively doing 220 for 2 Dark Energy if your opponent's Pokemon has a damage counter on it, which, I mean, Zigzagoon, we've talked about that Pokemon a lot. We've seen it a lot. Could get that damage counter on, but also you could utilize something else, which I know you are not super fond of. Sean, I know you were making fun of it in your stream. The ability V-Star power called Moon Cutting Star. Once during your turn, Sean, so you can only do this once per game, so you better make it count.
Yeah, why does it say once during your turn? It's a power that you can only use once during the repetitive Pokemon.
You may put not 1, not 2, not 3, but 4 damage counters on one of your opponent's Pokemon. That's it.
Wow.
That's the V-Star power.
Wow.
Just 4 damage counters.
Bruh.
On your opponent's Pokemon. Now, I will say, Sean, for as much as you make fun of it, and as much as it is warranted to make fun of, I will say you put the 4 damage counters on a Pokemon, you can get other damage counters like Zigzagoon and stuff. Your Merciless Blade is doing 220 in addition to all of that. So 220, 260 with the V-Star power. 270 knocks out an opposing Hissuian Samurott V. Maybe you get a scoop up net or a quick shooting. 280, 290 in terms of knocking out your Arceus V-Stars, things like that. So it's an interesting idea, but it feels like a lot in this Hissuian Samurott V-Star that it's like the first KO good. And then after it's just a little bit tough to get those numbers.
Yeah. I mean, I think if Pokemon wants any advice, which they do not want and it did not ask for,
they don't want it from us, especially.
Like, I don't think it makes the ability that much better, but you know what they should have done as a minimum? Once during your turn, you may put 4 damage counters on your opponent's Pokemon in any way you like.
I will agree that does make it better, and I don't know if that makes it super overpowered.
No,
but I also don't think. Well, here's the thing. I think they want you to kind of work to get that 110 extra damage, right? Because 110 more damage is doubling what you're doing originally, the base damage for Samurot's attack, and it's too dark with dark patch and stuff. That is very easy to fulfill. That is very, very easy. So I think that they specified just one Pokemon because they don't want you to spread it out and basically guarantee that, you know, you can do it for every single Pokemon. You know, if you do want to do it, it is possible because we have different damage modifiers that place damage counters places, but you gotta work for it a little bit. So I think that was their thought process. Obviously, they tested this, you know, over at the Pokemon Company International, you know, the group in Japan. I'm sure, Sean, that if it was any way you'd like, this would be a broken, busted card, and then we'd be talking about, you'd be making a video just like you did on Eternatus, beat Eternatus, putting a bounty on it. I'm just kidding. I don't know if it would have been that good.
Yeah, you might be right. Maybe they tested it and the ability was, that's the only way they can make it work. I agree with you. If you're going second and it's your second turn, that ability paired with the attack, the way that it's worded, that actually does get you to a place where you can knock out an opposing Arceus V-Star. The problem is that Arceus V-Star probably already attacked and probably already powered up 3 energy somewhere else. So, yes, you get to take a knockout. Woohoo, good job. You're going to get knocked out in return, and you're going to have nothing.
You got to figure out how to beat up the next Pokemon.
Yeah, and I think that's the problem with it. But, Jake, let's go ahead. I mean,
I just want to talk about the Magnezone real quick. 107, 150 HP Stage 2 Metal Pokemon evolves from Magneton. If you do not know, the ability is really, really cool. We've seen this on Pokemon like Blastoise, I believe from Unbroken Bonds, I think the set was. Or it was Team Up, one of the two of those. Once during your turn, you may look at the top 6 cards of your deck, choose any number of metal energies you find in there, and attach those energies to your Pokemon in any way you'd like. Then shuffle the remaining cards back into your deck. I think it's really cool, especially if I don't know if Bronzong's rotating after Worlds, but if it is, this is a cool replacement for that Bronzong for your decks, like the Corviknight deck that we were talking about earlier, that Frank Persig was playing.
Or Jake, or the V and V-Star that we're getting in Metal.
The Magnezone is a really, really good art by Gosan. Absolutely incredible art if you're an art collector. But anyways, yes, Sean, go.
So the first, the V, it's fine. Attach 2 metal.
This is Dialga, by the way.
Yes,
Origin
form Dialga. Thank you. Attach 2 metal energy from your discard pile to this Pokemon. It's fine. You probably don't want to use that. You want it to not be killed before you can do what you want with it. The V-Star, though, 1 colorless Metal Blast, 40 more damage for each metal energy attached to this Pokemon. And you might think to yourself, wow, that seems like a bad idea. Do you really want to commit so much energy to this Pokemon? And the reason you want to commit the energy to this Pokemon is for its V-Star attack. Chrono Star. It is 4 metal and a colorless, so 5 energy.
Which is not out of the realm of the ordinary with Metal Saucer and also Bronzong.
Or Magnezone, right? The one that you just...
Or Magnezone. Right. I don't think that you should use Magnezone, but power to you if you want to. Zacian V powers up energies in the beginning stages. Anyways, what does Chrono Star do, Sean?
220 damage. Take another turn after this one. And you skip Pokemon Checkup, so you don't get the, like, extra poison or whatever. If you happen to have that situation, you don't get that.
This is very typical to Dialga cards. I believe Dialga GX had the GX attack that basically, I mean, it didn't say, I don't think it said get an extra turn. I think the wording was you prevent like all, no, that was Cobalion, wasn't it? Maybe Dialga was just take an extra turn.
Yeah. There was a Dialga GX, I think, that had a big attack, maybe 200 damage.
It was take another turn after this one, skip the between turn steps. It was. So I mean, it's basically the same thing.
Yeah.
You know, but it does 220 damage on top of it.
So
which going from 220 damage over to Metal Blast is not nothing to sneeze at.
No, because like if you've powered it up for 5, that means that the Metal Blast is going to be doing a minimum of 240 if it's all metal, right? So I think for me, Jake, the combo that I want to see someone pull off, and maybe I'll try to do this, is I want somebody to take 3 turns in a row. Do you know how you would do this, Jake?
I know because I listen to your
Twitch
stream. Yes, I listen to the Twitch stream. And I watched the YouTube video of you opening up an Astral Radiance booster box early, which you can see on our YouTube channel. Go check out our YouTube. Anyway, Sean, how do you get 3 turns in a row, not letting your opponent play the game of Pokemon?
Exactly. So I think what you would need, you need this V-Star to get powered up, which is not an easy task, but whatever. You're doing 220. Let's say you're hitting into something that is maybe around 280 HP, say an Arceus V-Star, you're about 60 damage short. If you're playing the quick shooting in Tele Online, you know, the first turn you are doing 220, you can maybe throw a choice belt onto it, so you're doing 250. Cool, that's wonderful. The second turn, you go into that quick shooting, and then you ping a couple of damage counters on it to get it to 270. And then you throw down a little Medicham V, attach a double turbo onto that little guy, retreat this, boom, 2 damage counters, knock out something else. What do? You take an extra turn. So, and then you can bring the Dialga V-Star back up. You've attached another energy, and all of a sudden you might be doing 280 damage. So boom, that's another, not another extra turn, but like you can effectively, I think, you know, get 4 prizes off of a multi-turn combo like that. And then, you know, with that quick shooting ability too, if there's anything on the bench that's a small fry, like a, you know, it's a Sobbles or whatever, you can start setting that up so maybe a Medicham can keep those extra turns going. Who knows, Jake? Who knows?
Well, with Medicham, I believe on Medicham you can only use 1 Yoga Loop per turn. But that's not to say that if one of your Pokemon used Yoga Loop during your last turn, this attack cannot be used. But that doesn't mean that at the beginning of the game, you know, you can use it and then use it again later. But I want to call a cool card interaction that I didn't really know about until this past weekend. So with Pokemon that get knocked out, things like that, we have cards in this format like Raihan. Now, Raihan, if you do not know, specifically says you can play this card only if any of your Pokemon were knocked out during your opponent's last turn. So, Sean, if you so wanted to, you could technically, if you pulled off this combo of the Chrono Star, the Medicham, Yoga Loop in succession, you can use Raihan for 3 turns in a row. When only losing 1 Pokemon. Because it specifically says your opponent's last turn. You're not like, and with these like extra turn interactions, it's not like you're going opponent's turn, your turn, the Chrono Star, like briefly go into the opponent's turn to skip it. You are just going from your turn to your turn. So the effect of Raihan is still active in your turns in succession. So you can use Raihan, you know, right after your Pokemon's been knocked out, do your Chrono Star, use Raihan again to get your Yoga Loop off, and then use Raihan again in the next turn.
That's interesting, yeah, because your opponent's last turn would have been 2 turns ago, but something happened. And then the interesting thing about
it's their last turn, and because you're using all of these turns in succession, they're not having another turn.
That's cool.
It's still active.
Yes, that is a really interesting and I suppose if you time it correctly, where you take extra turns and then your final turn you don't knock something out, then your opponent doesn't get to use Raihan because your last turn you didn't knock something out.
I only bring that up because, especially with Medicham V, right? A lot of people, when they use Yoga Loop on Medicham V, they're using a Rapid Strike energy. For a Dialga deck, a Rapid Strike energy wouldn't really work. No. Like, it's just kind of weird. But if you can use Chrono Star and then go into Yoga Loop, and you can use that Raihan. You can use a Raihan to power up a metal energy, right? And then you can attach one yourself to be able to get off that Yoga Loop, because Yoga Loop, I just had it pulled up, but I believe it's double colorless.
Yes, it is.
Energy cost. So again, like, I really hope somebody takes your challenge of doing 3 turns with, you know, straight, because I mean, I think that there's a combo there.
I will say, technically, you can get 4 turns in a row. I just thought of
What?
it.
How do you get 4 turns?
So you have to do some setup, but if you Yoga Loop first to take an extra turn, then you Chrono Star, take an extra turn, followed by a Yoga Loop again, take an extra turn, 4 turns.
Oh, okay.
So you start with the Yoga Loop.
Yeah, you start with Yoga Loop, and then you're able to make it happen.
So that's my challenge. If anybody out there in a real game manages to get 4 turns, we got to think of something to give them, Jake.
You can also, that's actually not super bad, because like, your Pokemon are not going to get knocked out, right? If you're doing these turns.
Yeah.
So your Medicham V is not dying.
You're fine.
Oh, Sean, that is crazy.
Yeah.
That's insane. Somebody just made a 1 million view YouTube video.
I took 4 turns
with
in
that
Pokemon.
idea.
My opponent got 1 turn and then they lost.
It's like the Donk decks, but
Basically.
instead of Donk decks, it's standard format. Oh God, Sean, what if that wins Worlds? Oh boy, that would do it.
I bet you I know what they would ban. They would either ban Medicham, or they would they might even ban Zigzagoon, because I think that's the card you might need to make that combo
That's
work.
the card that tips it over the edge, Zigzagoon. Sean, we got to move on, This podcast is very, very long. This might be a 2-hour pod, in all honesty. Garchomp V, 200 HP, Dragon, basic Pokemon. Let me just get into the cards. Sonic Drive, discard 3 energies from this Pokemon and do 220 damage to one of your opponent's Pokemon. That is anywhere on the field, 220 damage. Now, its cost is water, fighting, colorless, so it is a little bit of a cheeky thing. But we look at Flygon, right? When Arceus first came out, it was paired with Flygon, which is a multi-type energy attack, and that was able to go. And I mean, 220 is a lot to put anywhere on the field, so especially with Melanie in the format as an energy accelerant, you know, I don't see this being out of the realm of possibilities for Arceus decks that are playing either fighting or water type Pokemon. Sean?
Yeah, I agree. Maybe, you know what I'm hoping for? Reprint Double Dragon. Reprint.
Oh gosh,
Do it.
I don't want it because Duraludon, because I feel like that would just make Duraludon a lot better. There's an Eevee card from Sao in here. Very, very cool. Eevee having that, you know, when you play a card to evolve from one of your Eevee, search your deck for evolves of this Pokemon and play it to evolve it, then shuffle your deck. It is cool evolution card. Not really great. But anyway, Sean, we're moving on to the next one. What's your next one, Sean?
I mean, there's a Miltank that basically is just a reprint of a basic Pokemon version of whatchamacallit, Altaria.
Decidueye?
And Decidueye.
And Altaria?
Yeah, but, you know, not good. Not in this form. There's too many things that get through those abilities. The Oranguru V, search your deck for 2 Pokemon tool cards. We have Adventure Bag, Jake. I didn't even know.
We have Adventure Bag. Unfortunately, it's on a 2-prize Pokemon.
I mean, yeah, that's not good. But, you know, Adventure Bag.
Okay.
The other one that I'll do really quickly, because then we can get into the trainers. Weirdeer V is legit a good card. This card is good. Ability, Opening Road. Once during your turn, when this Pokemon moves from your bench to your active, move any number of energy from your other Pokemon to it. And it doesn't say basic energy. Important. Triple colorless. Psybash 40. This attack does 40 times the amount of energy. Energy, not energy cards attached to this Pokemon. So, in an Arceus...
A double turbo is 2 energy.
You are
80
right.
damage.
So, in an Arceus deck, when you are playing double turbo, now multiple double turbo will still have the effect of reducing the damage.
Yeah, you're gonna be reducing as much damage as you're trying to do.
Maybe, but I will say double turbos. If you're playing this with Arceus though, which is accelerating energy elsewhere too, this can come up, take some really big knockouts late game. And it's a great closer. If anybody remembers Tapu Koko GX, the GX attack, basically did the same thing for electric style decks, except this one
Great
can do it.
finish for that Pikarom deck that dominated for so long.
So this can do it in any deck because it doesn't matter what the color requirements are. So I think this pick at least one copy of this card up if you're looking to get a nice closer. But Jake, we
gotta move on to the trainers. Adamant, we're going to talk about Adamant supporter. Discard 2 metal energies from your hand, or I should say, discard 2 metal energy cards from your hand. So I think this also can include special energy if you so choose to, although I don't think it works out super well. I'll get to a why in a second. If you do, search your deck for up to 2 cards and put them in your hand, then shuffle your deck. This is a very cool supporter. You know, metal energy cards go in very, very, what's the word that I'm looking for? They work really well with Metal Saucer, right? To be able to put energies from the discard into your Pokemon on the bench. So very, very cool in that aspect. And then also allows you to search for any 2 cards you want in your deck. Doesn't have to be a specific set of cards or anything like that. So it could be a cool little relationship.
I mean, do we see with this the return of Turbo Zacian with the Brave Blade Sword or whatever? Because you think about it, 230, if you can guarantee 2 attachments with the Metal Saucers.
Although, I mean, like, and you're doing,
what is that?
The thing is, like,
sword does an extra 50?
You've got to be grabbing, like, a Metal Saucer with Adamant, right? Which is not ideal.
Not ideal, but I don't know, depending, like, you think going, you could even do this going first. This is actually, this could be if your opponent doesn't have a good start, this is a donk card right here, you know?
Very interesting. But I don't think you play 4 Adamants in your deck at all. Definitely like 1 or 2 in your metal type decks, even like your Dialga decks, you know, Dialga, Zacian, Corviknight, any of those. I want to talk about canceling Cologne before you skip it. I don't know if you were going to talk about it, but I kind of want to talk about it because I think this is a very, very cool card. We've talked about it a lot in the Pokemon trading card game, especially the last several sets Sean and I have talked about on this podcast, about how some effects of, like, you know, your opponent's active Pokemon can't retreat the next turn, or, you know, they can't use XYZ attack. We talk a lot about how that's kind of nullified because, you know, we have so many switching outs. You know, we have Switch, we have Birdkeeper, we have Escape Rope, you know, a lot of different switching outs, Air Balloon, things like that. But this card, this item card, canceling Cologne. Your opponent's active Pokemon has no abilities until the end of this turn, including Pokemon that move to the active spot during this turn. Now, I don't know if it's great because it's, you know, the end of your turn effectively. So once it goes into their turn, they can start using abilities again. But I think that this is really cool that they're playing around with this idea now that, okay, this is an effect on the active spot, not necessarily on the active Pokemon, but more so the spot. I think this is kind of one of the first of, like, this effect, I feel like, at least that I've seen since we've started this podcast 2 years ago.
It's a zone-based effect rather than a Pokemon. Yeah, it is interesting. And I don't know, this is very specific. I think you would be playing this if you're playing Mew or something against, like, a Duraludon, right? VMAX. Not a bad card against a Duraludon, because you can basically say, hey, I have special energy, but it doesn't matter. Throw this down, move on. I don't know. I think, though, that, like, if you really want to get around that, then what you end up doing is just playing maybe the Path to the Peak instead. But I don't know. But I guess in Mew, you're not going to play Path to the Peak. So it's a very specific card, I think.
Yeah, it's very interesting. But Sean, what's the next trainer card that you want to talk about? Because there's a couple.
Yeah, the next worthwhile one. I will mention Silene real quick. Flip 2 coins for each heads. Choose a card from your discard pile and put it on top of your deck in any order. I mean, you know, I was going to say, like, normally this is, like, a really good card for Control, except it's a coin flip. Control does not like RNG. So I don't really...
Yeah, the only really RNG that I really want to play is, like, Crushing Hammer. That's pretty much it.
So I don't know where this deck has a home because it is your supporter for the turn. And I'm like, if you're flipping 2 coins to choose up to 2 cards, you might as well play Old Computer and flip the same number of coins to maybe get 1 card directly into your hand, right? And that doesn't
Because
see
it's
play.
an item, and you're still going to
Right.
be able to use Research, Marnie,
Right.
Roxanne, like any of those.
I will say, though, for people who like to build meme decks, this is great if you want to build a meme coin flip deck. Excellent card. So,
How many coins can you flip in a single game?
I mean, I think me and Stefan did a video about that actually like a year ago. So now, you could do it in standard.
I will say, Dark Patch, we've talked about this card. If you don't know what this card is, maybe you're a little bit newer into the Pokemon trading card game. This is an item card. Attach a basic dark energy from your discard pile onto one of your benched dark Pokemon. So very, very good card. If you're playing a dark deck, you have 4 of in these. That's just how this card works. This is a reprint. That's how it goes. Very, very good card. Make sure that you get 4 of those. We talked about Energy Lotto. They teased this card and said that this was the hype new item card. I will say, though, it does work for special energies. The item card is look at the top 7 cards of your deck. You may reveal an energy card you find in there, put it in your hand, shuffle the other cards back into your deck. Again, can't find special energies. So, I mean, it's going to see some play in some decks. But, John, what's the next card you want to talk about?
I mean, Featherball is interesting. You can get a Pokemon with 0 retreat cost. But really, Gape-Jaw Bog. I like this card. Whenever either player puts a basic Pokemon from their hand onto their bench, they place 2 damage counters on it.
That's a stadium, by the way.
Yes, it's a stadium. Thank you. I like this card because it can do a lot of math setup for any deck. Like, if you are like, I'm not sure what stadium I want to play, and you really are like on the fence about Path to the Peak as that stadium of choice, Gape-Jaw Bog is not a bad option if you don't mind damage counters being placed on your Pokemon, or if you have a way to heal that off, whatever it may be. Obviously, this is going to work best in decks where you want damage counters on you. Like, I think if you're playing that Heatran, the Radiant Heatran, this is a stadium you really want for that. But I don't know. It's nice. It can really fix some math on things. It can make people who are playing all of the those Sobble lines really. It can make it really awkward because if you play a Sobble down on your turn and your opponent has a quick shooting, then all you need is a Medicham and you get an extra turn. That's literally
Yoga
like
Loop City.
Yeah, no, so that's the thing, right? So it actually, I think, punishes the Inteleon line quite a bit if people prepare for that.
It's very interesting. I think it's definitely going to see play. Stadiums are a little bit cheeky right now because only one stadium gets in play, and there's very, very good stadiums like Path to the Peak that are currently in the format. Training Court, another really, really good one. So, yeah, it's all going to depend. Magma Basin as well. You talk about the Heatran, you're going to want to play that. But Sean, this is a card that you are going to want to play if you're playing a grass deck. Gardenia's Vigor. Now, I will say this is one of the few cards where in terms of the supporters, because a lot of the supporters are like copy paste, the infamous tag team supporters. Gardenia's Vigor, absolutely beautiful, beautiful art on this. And the full art as well, absolutely incredible. But we're going to talk about the card's effect. Draw 2 cards. Now, you may not think that that's great, but the second effect on this, then attach up to 2 grass energies from your hand to one of your benched Pokemon. So we have seen in the format cards like Welder, cards like Melanie, where they are, what was I going to say? Cards like Welder, cards like Melanie that accelerate energies and then draw cards on top of that. But this one is interesting and different than those cards because you do the drawing first.
Yep.
Meaning that you can draw into the grass energies. And one of the things, me as a former Blacephalon GX player, one of the things about Welder sometimes that was tricky was that you didn't have the fire energies and you had to get the fire energies. So having this effect to draw first and then attach the energies is really, really cool because, you may have one grass energy or no grass energies in your hand, but then afterwards drawing, you may draw into 1 or 2, and then therefore you can attach. And very, very cool. I mean, you don't have to attach. It is up to 2, so you can attach, you know, if you draw into them, if you want to attach. I mean, I don't know if there's a situation where you have the energies in your hand and you don't want to attach, but the option is there for you. Or if you just don't get any at all, you know, unlucky, you still get to draw 2 cards.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it's a cool card. I like for the exact reasons. I think, keep in mind, if you start playing this early, it does say benched Pokemon. That is always, I think, a catch for a lot of people with some of these, because not all of these supporters work the same way. Melanie, it's only Pokemon V. Welder, it was any Pokemon. This is only benched. And so that's why I'm like, it's good. I'm glad that they made it 2 energy, because Bead, the problem with Bead is Bead was benched and it was only 1, which is why it never saw play. But, you know, maybe that will make this one long-term playable.
It's very, very interesting, I think. Sean, do you want to talk about Grant?
I mean, Grant...
I think we've mentioned Grant before.
Yeah, Grant is interesting. Your fighting Pokemon do 30 more damage. This one does have an interesting effect, which is if it's in your discard pile, you could discard 2 cards except a Grant to put the Grant back in your hand. So, like, we haven't seen a discard interaction like this since, I think, the Execute, way, way back when, right?
And the Execute, you didn't even have to discard anything in your hand.
That's true.
It was just an ability that on the Execute itself that you could just put it back. Oh, sorry. You could just put it back in.
So I think that, for me, is why they added this text, because they realized how broken Execute was with Ultra Ball. So they were like, no, we're not going to enable a one discard Ultra Ball anymore.
Especially on a supporter like Grant. I mean, yeah. Execute really, really good.
Yeah.
But that card was just the ability to get it back in your hand. Whereas Grant does 30 extra damage for fighting type Pokemon. So like, if it was like Execute where you could just get it back, you know, you're just chaining those babies. But
yeah,
yes, the discard 2 cards to put it back in your hand, very, very cool. You know, Leon has seen some play. Leon, I believe, is 30 extra damage as well for any Pokemon, really.
Yeah.
But doesn't have that. It doesn't have that effect of getting it back. So I think there is some validity in like putting a one of Grant in a deck, especially a fighting type deck. So
yeah. I think
very, very interesting.
I think that was spot on. I think it's a one of in fighting type decks because of that ability, which is great.
If you're also playing fighting type decks, Gusty Pickaxe, the item card in this set. Reveal the top card of your deck. If it's a fighting energy, attach it to one of your bench Pokemon. Otherwise, reveal it to your opponent and put it in your hand. So very cool. You know, we've seen Colossal VMAX with a Rangaroo to be able to manipulate the top of your deck for these like top deck effect type of attacks, cards, things like that. And so, especially with Rotom Phone as well in the format, it could be a good combo to accelerate those fighting type energies. You know, B also the supporter B accelerating fighting type energies, but has not seen a lot of play at all, really. This could be a item card that makes its way into fighting type decks to fill fighting type energy requirements.
Yeah, I mean, think about people were playing cards like Judge, just so that their deck would be 1 less card. So you play 4 Judge, and you effectively have a 50, not Judge Whistle. And then you effectively have a 56 card deck. Yes. Because what Judge Whistle did was like, you can get a Judge from your discard, but otherwise draw a card. This card is literally, it's basically a draw card. And if it's a fighting energy, it's instead an attach an energy. So I'm like, I think in a fighting type deck, this is probably a 4 of. Because, like, why not, right? It's a free draw regardless.
Yeah, and I mean, you reveal it to your opponent and put it in your hand. You know, it may not really matter. I mean, what that card is. There are so many search options, and there's so many cards that just reveal cards anyway that you're grabbing. So this is just another one of them. And it's not like you don't know what the card is either. Like, you're gonna know. So I really, really like this card. I like Gusty Pickaxe a lot.
Hissuian Heavy Ball, I'll mention only for control players. If you're playing a deck that relies on a lot of one-of basics, great card, because if you have a way of finding the Hissuian Heavy Ball, whether that's like an early game Shaman to set it up and whatever, if you know what's in your prizes, that is a great card for that because you can ensure that you won't prize a key piece like a Manaphy or whatever, right?
Or you could be in a situation like we saw in the regionals where maybe both of your Beedrill are prized, or
it's only a basic Pokemon.
Oh, yeah, that's right. Well, there was a point where I tweeted a picture of this. Somebody prized 6 Pokemon.
Oh my god.
Like literally all 6 of their prizes were Pokemon. So I bet this card would have helped them there.
Yeah, probably. So it's a weird card. I don't think you would run 4 of these. So unless you're playing a deck that can find this card specifically out of your deck, I don't think you run this card. And I think you only run it in decks that play a heavy 1-of count of like certain key cards.
Or just like a heavy count of basics.
Yeah, you could also do a heavy count of basics.
I wonder if you play this in like Shady Dealings decks, because Shady Dealings almost always plays 4 Sobble.
Yeah.
And so there's 4 basic Pokemon right there. You know, your attacking Pokemon, probably another 4. Like,
yeah, I think you could
support Pokemon, a Crobat. You know, I don't know.
Yeah. So, and then you get a good confirmation of your price. Interesting card. That's all I'll say. Jake.
It's very interesting, but Irida, the most expensive card that is going to be in the set in terms of full arts and stuff like that, is a supporter. Search your deck for a water Pokemon and an item card. Reveal them and put them in your hand. Then shuffle your deck. This card is also seeing play, Sean, in Japan, especially with the Palkia decks running around. I mean, I don't know if it's a 4-of in a deck because it's just a water Pokemon and an item card. But if you're in a position to where you don't really need to research, if you're in a position where, you know, you just need, you know, 1 Pokemon or whatever or something, and this could be a Pokemon that is in evolution. This could be a Pokemon, a Shady Dealings. This could be a basic Pokemon. You know, there's a lot of possibilities with this. And so I think Irida does see play in water decks and maybe even Shady Dealings decks. I don't know about that. That seems a little bit of a stretch. Maybe. I think it has to be a water specific archetype.
Yeah. I mean, I like it though. I think you're right. I think it's basically, it feels like a Piers for water, where the difference is instead of an energy, you get an item. I would argue the energy is probably better. Because it's special energy included, which, like, there's very few ways to search for special energy directly. But,
yes, this is fact.
But, you know, quickly moving on, I'll go to Jubilife Village. Interesting stadium. Once during each player's turn, the player may shuffle their hand into their deck and draw 5 cards. It's a very much a group hug stadium where, like, it's good for everybody, but maybe you're playing a deck that, you know, you don't have a draw engine, right? You're not running the Bidoofs. You're not running the Inteleons. It's a nice...
Maybe you're just playing Togekiss.
Right. It's a nice draw deck. Kind of weird. But, you know, fair enough. I just wanted to mention it. It's kind of interesting.
I'm going to move on to Roxanne, a supporter. You can only play this card if your opponent has 3 prizes or less remaining. Or I should say 3 or less prize cards. 3 or less prize cards left. That is so weird to say. I don't know if I'm just tired or not. Both players shuffle their hands into their decks. You draw 6 cards and your opponent draws 2 cards. This is a very, very good card as well. Roxanne, probably going to be the second most expensive card in this set in terms of the full arts and whatnot. Very, very good. I mean, people have wanted late game mechanics and comebacks to come back into the Pokemon trading card game since Reset Stamp and Let Loose Marshadow, you know, are all gone. Things like that. We don't really have that kind of late game comeback mechanic, and this is one of them. You know, with 3 prize Pokemon still in the format, this is not out of the realm of the ordinary to even use mid game, I would say.
Yeah, I really like this. Like, if any of you are familiar with N, this is basically a spiritual successor to N.
I would say it's more like Ace Trainer.
Okay, maybe. Yeah. I'm not familiar with
Ace Trainer, when you're a Pokemon, I think it's like when your opponent or when your Pokemon was knocked out last turn, Ace Trainer says that each player shuffles their hand in the deck. You draw 6, they draw 3.
Okay, yeah, it's very similar.
Or I'm sorry, you can play this card only if you have more prize cards left than your opponent.
Okay.
So similar, you know, it deals with prize cards, but...
Yes. But, like, leaving your opponent at 2 cards is really interesting because like there's probably a way to get your opponent down to 0 cards in hand if you have the right. I don't know what else in Standard other than Malamar would help you get rid of a card from hand, but I'm sure there is something.
There may be something.
And leaving your
I don't know
opponent,
it off the top of my head.
but like leaving your opponent in top deck mode late game is about as good as you can hope for, to be honest. So, there's a couple of quick things I'll go through, Jake. Super reflective glasses. Basically, your opponent's your active Pokemon do triple damage instead of double for weakness, which always good for Counterbox, right? Counterbox will take this because, oh wait, I don't have to play the evolution line. I can just play the basic version. Yes, please.
And also for decks like Wormadam, right? I mean, Wormadam multiplying and building up for the amount of Pokemon in the discard pile, and especially for Mad Party as well. I mean, it's a little bit better than Mad Party because Wormadam Zoroark plays more on weakness than Mad Party does. But a lot of times those smaller decks that depend on the amount of Pokemon in the discard sometimes just don't hit enough numbers because the Pokemon are so big nowadays and HP is so massive. So having this super effective glasses is huge in my opinion for a deck like Wormadam. I mean, it really, that deck Wormadam Zoroark really beefs up with these glasses, with the Mighty Yenna coming in that we talked about earlier. Just absolutely sweet. And plenty of other decks can play the glasses too, but that's the first one that comes to my mind.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And the other card I was want to quickly mention is Switch Cart. It's basically Switch, except you also heal 30 damage from the active that moved to the bench. I'm like, why would anyone ever play Switch if this is in format? Unless you need more than 4. Like, just play Switch Cart, get some heal, job done.
Easy.
Yeah.
I will say though, Temple of Sinnoh, the stadium card is very interesting, especially for your decks like Darkrai and things like that. Each special energy attached to a Pokemon in play provides colorless energy and has no other effects. So, I mean, special energies right now are dominating the format. You have Fusion Strike energy, you have Double Turbo energy that's running around, even like Rapid Strike energy, you know, for the Urshifus and things like that. And we've talked about some of the other special energies that some decks could use, you know, the Heatran, when that becomes the tier 1 S tier deck, thanks to the Metapod podcast, that fire energy can be negated in terms of its effect and also its energy cost. So, very, very cool. You have to remember that this also affects you as well. So if you're playing special energies, it kind of hurts, which is why I mentioned the Darkrai V-Star deck, you know, because that is probably mostly just playing basic dark energies and things like that. And so that could be a cool stadium to pair it up with. Let's move on though, Sean, unless you want to mention something about it.
There is one little thing here. I'm teching this card, I'm testing it out in Arceus V-Star against other Arceus V-Stars, because if the energy situation is such that they've already used their V-Star ability, right? So you're not going to
V-Star power.
Yeah. If they've already used that, if you slap this down and they only have 1 double turbo and they only have 1 attachment for turn, you turn that double turbo into a single colorless. So then they won't be able to, unless they have another stadium, attack the following turn, right? They won't have enough energy. And if you do this, the ability that makes your own double turbos do 20 less damage also gets turned off. So you don't do 20 less damage.
I think that this could be something cool in like in terms of the early versions of like Arceus Toolbox decks, Ice Rider Calyrex VMAX.
Yeah.
You know, that didn't really have like a sure stadium, you know, that it was always going to play. Like there was no staple stadium with the Arceus Ice Rider Calyrex archetype, but you know, the energy accelerant in Melanie, you know, being able to power up those energies. And if you're going to move your double turbo to just 1 slot in order to get rid of that secondary effect of minimizing the damage, you know, you could still get 3 energies. I mean, not that difficult. So I think that that's an interesting point for you to bring up about Arceus decks, utilizing this card potentially.
The next card I'll talk about, those trekking shoes. This card, I think, is going to be absolutely broken. I think it's going to be Acrobike. I genuinely think that. If those of you who don't know Acrobike, basically, I think it was discard a card and draw 2. And any
no. So you look at the Acrobike was you look at the top 2 cards of your deck.
Yes.
Put one in your hand, discard the other.
So it was effectively a draw 2, though, right?
Mm-hmm.
This Trekking Shoes is the same thing. It's an item card. Look at the top card. You can put that card into your hand, or you can discard it and then just draw a card. So unless you really need the card that was on top, in which case, congratulations, you found what you needed.
Yeah.
Otherwise, it's just a draw 2 if you don't really need anything. I think Trekking Shoes, that might be a card that for a lot of decks becomes like for turbo decks, like decks that want to go fast. Like, why wouldn't Mew play this? I don't understand why Mew wouldn't play this, maybe. I don't know.
I think that it's pretty good for Mew to play because, you talk about like Battle VIP Pass, Cramomatics, things like that, Yeah. If you find a VIP Pass early game right off the Trekking Shoes, congratulations, you put 2 Pokemon on the bench. But if you find it late game, okay, well, just discard it.
Get it out of here.
Get rid of it.
Yeah, so I don't know. Trekking Shoes to me, gonna be a broken card. Jay.
I will say the final card that I want to talk about, Wait and See Turbo Item Card Trainer. You can only use this if you go second and only on your first turn. Search your deck for a basic energy Pokemon, attach it to one of your Pokemon, shuffle your deck, your turn ends. I don't really like this card.
The fact that it says your turn ends, I'm like...
I think that's so bad.
I'm like,
come on!
It's an item card you can only use going second on your first turn. If I draw the nuts, Pokemon, if I draw the nuts and get all 4 of these turn 1, let me play them.
Yeah, like you literally do that with VIP Pass, right? I mean, like, what? Why was this your turn ends needed on this?
To accelerate 1 energy, Jake. Bruh.
Like, I mean, we don't have donk decks, right? I mean, like, there are plenty of other ways to accelerate. I
know.
I see this card and I'm like, I was gonna say thriving, but what's a writhing? Writhing?
Yeah, you're just very upset.
I'm mad that they made this card.
Yeah.
I'm so mad.
It could have been such a good high roll card. Like, if you're the kind of player who, like, I'm gonna go turbo.
I'm gonna say Mew VMAX it does not need any more energy acceleration. It does not need more high roll.
It's only a basic energy, though.
Yeah, but like that still helps you, right?
Sure. But you know what? If Mew high rolls and gets 4 Wait and See turbos turn 1, GG's, congratulations, you won the lottery. I don't know, like...
I mean, like, think about it this way. Like, the reason that Mew VMAX is so powerful is because of that Meloetta.
True, but it's going first on your first turn. So, like, yeah, that's true. The Meloetta, but the Meloetta only works.
It's your first turn going second.
It's going second, yeah.
So it's the same thing as the Meloetta, right? The Meloetta is so powerful because if you get the Eliza Sparkle, boom, 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 you get to attach all these energies. But, like, what I'm saying is, the only reason that I'm glad that it says that your turn ends is because if it didn't say your turn ends, okay, if you don't find the Eliza Sparkle, you can use that to accelerate on a Mew to use Genesect you wouldn't be able to use it because you can't evolve into Mew VMAX, but you can use it for like a Genesect. Yeah. You can start playing Metal Energies and then boom, you're just doing that organic 230, which is kind of scary, but... Anyway, Sean, we have talked a lot about Astral Radiance. Reminder, on our YouTube channel, you can see Sean open up a whole booster box already if you want to watch more. Maybe you're on, maybe after you listen to this on Spotify or Apple, you want to go look for it. Metapod YouTube channel, it's in the description. Sean pulled the absolute freaking gas, and I'm hoping that this ETB that I'm holding right now, Astral Radiance, provided by the Pokemon Company. Thank you so much for sending it to Sean and letting us open it on the Metapod. We'll be posting this video later this week, so stay tuned as well for that. For the podcast that revolves around the evolving meta, this podcast is way too long and maybe a record-setting length. Anyways, bye!